In September of this year, Peter Hegseth, Department of War Secretary, addressed a group of individuals and military leaders and laid out what he described as the new way forward. Oddly enough, it really isn't a new way forward. It's just getting back to where we have been at one time, and we seem to have forgotten our way. I'm going to explain to you why woke equals failure and death in the military, and why Peter Hegseth is 100% right on the next episode of The Military Historian. As I said in my intro, Pete Hegseth held a symposium in September of this year, and basically what he said was very simple. Woke and DEI and all these other programs and being physically unfit in the military is a no-go. You can't do it. So what he was trying to say to his whole military brass, his military leaders, was, I want you to lead by example. And I can honestly tell you that he's probably right. While I served in the military, I remember watching as black female officers were promoted to colonel who at no point could have ever passed the body fat standards. Now, I'm not saying that I'm unhappy because they were promoted because they were black and female. If someone deserves to be promoted, I don't care if they're red, green, yellow, or purple. But I do not want people leading our troops in the military on the battlefield who are not physically fit to do it. And you're going to see why, because I'm going to show you a video of November of 2015, 2024, and 2000, I want to get this straight. I think it was November 2004 of the invasion of Fallujah. You're going to see why moving with a purpose was actually important, because it could have cost you your life. And bottom line is this. That meeting was designed to end any possible vestigials of woke and DEI. It was held at the Marine Corps base in Quantico, Virginia, and it basically had generals summoned from all around the world, which is very much a first-time event. It was they used to deliver very much a forceful, toxic message, and the toxic ideology garbage that he felt had to go. Now, those are his words, not mine, but those are the words that he basically brought out. Dudes in dresses, things like that. And liberal influence in the military is a death nail. It's a coffin. It is not a good place to be. So I'm going to show you that video right now. Take a look at what you would have been facing had you been one of those service members from 31st to 2nd, the Iraqi military, and the U.S. Army and other cross-service service members who invaded Fallujah that night. Take a look at this, because this should tell you right now, and I believe visuals say much more than audio ever will. Visuals tell you very clearly there was no place for woke that night. It didn't matter if you were gay, straight, married, single, Democrat, or Republican. Those things don't matter on the battlefield. So take a look at this. As you can see, there was ample reason to be able to move with a purpose that night. And I will tell you this, bullets are an equal opportunity killer. If you've ever lived in LA or been around LA, you understand that a lot of children are dead as a result of indiscriminate gunfire. It's just the way it is. All right. They have no preference, and they're equal opportunity killers, oddly enough. And DEI and woke and all that, just as bad. Because what would happen if you were out of shape on that battlefield that night? You very well could have been the one that the bullet found a home with. So he basically is trying to say that this is exactly where we're headed, and we're not going anywhere else. We're going back to what once was. These standards were actually part of the military for as long as I can remember. I have no idea why they were suddenly abandoned in favor of political correctness or trying to keep a particular group of people happy. I can't imagine they did, because dying on a battlefield, that's not meant to be happy. It's not meant to be a happy event. And you basically sentencing people who don't meet the standards to the battlefield are sentencing them to death. It's just a bottom line fact. So over the years, physical fitness standards have lowered. There have been a number of reasons. Some of them involve dealing with an aging cadre, somebody like me who was approaching my 60s and I had to do the walk instead of the run. But we still had a lot of knowledge we could pass on to the younger generation. That was important. The other one was through social media, pressure, social engineering. And doing the right thing, when you start incorporating social media into anything, takes away any interest in doing the right thing or the moral thing. When political correctness takes center stage, God and moral standards, they're gone. Now, I said social engineering. Let me explain what social engineering is. According to Webster's dictionary, is a manipulative tactic of tricking people, using psychology, deception, to get them to give up sensitive info, grant access, or perform actions that compromise security, like clicking malware links or spending money or exploiting human trust errors rather than technical vulnerabilities. In the military, that roughly translates to getting people to concentrate on the absolute wrong things that could save them on the battlefield. Your physical fitness, your tactical proficiency, all those things are given up in the name of political correctness. And social engineering is basically tricking people into doing the political correctness and playing the political correctness game rather than playing the well-trained, well-oiled machine that is the military. The U.S. military is well-oiled and is a well-trained machine. Okay? And it has no place for political correctness and tricking people. Our job is very simple. Actually, it can't get any more simple than what it is. We're there to be lethal. We're there to kill people. There is no other job that we have other than basically when we show up, either the enemy surrenders or we kill them. That's the two choices that they have. And we better be better at it than everybody else out there, because if we're not, we're the ones that are going to be shipping home people in body bags. So that was a cyber definition, but the key tactics of all this have no place in the battlefield for any of that. The United States military is designed, as I said, for one thing, maximum lethality. And Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is 100% correct. It does not matter when you're in an LZ zone, whether you're a female, male, Republican or Democrat, gay, straight. The people behind you have your back. They are your family at that moment. You want to be able to depend upon them, look them in the eye, and say, you have my 12 o'clock. I need to know that, because if I'm doing a breaching in a house, police will know this. You have people covering your 12, you have people covering your 3 and your 6. All right? And you have to be able to depend on every one of them. Other thing that I really want to go through here is the physical fitness standards. Now, the physical fitness standards were for many years, they were the APFT, Army Physical Fitness Test. What it is essentially amounted to, and now I only noticed from the Army's perspective because that's what I did. There was push-ups. You had to do a minimum number of push-ups based upon your age basically it's based upon your age. They didn't cut you a break if you weren't physically fit. You had to do a certain number of sit-ups, then you had to do the 2-mile run within a certain period of time. And as you got older, some of those standards got a little less and less and lower because they understood that for the most part, as you get older, you're not as physically capable as you once were. And I definitely saw that. I remember going from 85 sit-ups in my 40s, in my late 40s, to before I retired, maybe doing 35, 40 sit-ups. It was nowhere near what I could do back then. Now, the new system, that is a whole new system now. That is 3 repetition max deadlift, and they have quite a bunch of heavy weights there, so you can choose which one, but you have to be able to pick up at least one of them 3 times. Hand release push-up, that means you need to do push-ups in 2 minutes, a minimum amount. Spring drag carry. Shuttle run with sprints, drags, and carries. The plank, you have to hold the plank for a maximum amount of time. Can substitute for failed leg tucks. Now, I've never done that one, but that's probably not a hard thing. Replaced with a 2.5 mile walk as an alternative aerobic event for some, and that's usually based upon your age. And let me tell you something, that walk, that is no joke. You have better be moving it from the minute you start it to the minute you're done. There is no play on that whatsoever. And you will fail if you take 1 second of a break on that. And that towards the end, I was doing that, and I was thinking maybe I'll be able to, do that, and it'd be no problem. What I found out was sometimes you jump out of the frying pan and into the fire, and it just gets worse. So now the only exception to the body fat rule now that they have on record is if you score over 450 or more on your PT test. Back on the original one, it was 70% or more on each event. So if you score more than, but you still did not get by the body fat content, made no difference. If you didn't meet body fat content, you failed. Now in the new one, if you score 450 points or higher on your new PT test, the body fat standards don't apply. And I think what they're looking at is, do they have people who are big people, but they're still very physically fit? The reason I say that is sometimes where you see these things happening, you cannot believe that sometimes the people that can do the things that they're doing should not be able to. I remember up in PLDC in Fort Lewis, Washington, a thin guy, couldn't have been more than 150 pounds, 170 pounds max, smoking cigarettes like a chain, and then went out there and smoked everybody else on the 2-mile run, and he was an instructor. Okay? And I asked him, can he do that every time? And they said, oh, yes. So sometimes appearances are deceiving. I used to work with a guy who was a lawyer, a little bit on the chubby side, but man, from a physical fitness point of view, he outperformed most of the people in the company. So I guess the Army has kind of recognized that. I know when I was in, I was always hovering around 205 to 220. My max weight was 205. I'm 6'2". So I generally failed the body fat test. And that created a problem a lot of times because I would have to almost just diet myself to death to get below that weight standard, retake the PT test, but then come the next PT test, I'd be a few pounds over it again. So the other thing that helped me, though, was when I was being taped, and they used to tape you, your chest, your stomach, and if you were in my case, you were primarily muscle, and I was bodybuilding at the time, it saved me because I was under a certain max circumference on my waist, my neck, and my chest. And every one of those, I fell within body fat standards. So those things I happen to believe, because I had to keep my physical bearing and physical fitness up to the very end. And I really used to bug me when I would go out and watch people who I know didn't pass APFT, didn't actually do what they were supposed to do, and they still passed. Because there was a lot of politics going on at the time, and I hate to say it, that's not abnormal in the military. You see that a lot everywhere. Anyways, the shift from the APFT to the ACFT, AFT moved from general fitness, APFT, to a test designed to predict success in physically demanding combat tasks. Yes, every one of those tasks that they have, sort of like when you take the California firefighters test, are designed to see specifically, will you be able to handle those firefighter tasks? That's what they're designed to do. And that's what the ACFT is designed to do. It incorporates more power, agility, and strengths, and strength-based movements with evolving scoring to balance fairness and combat effectiveness. Combat effectiveness is the key. You at all times have to be able to perform your duties. Now, where did all this come from? Well, I stated before, the one thing about when you start to move moral and social guidelines back to social engineering, you start moving the goalposts back. And back in the 60s, there was no formal explicit policy targeting transgender individuals in the U.S. military. But they were effectively denied entry. So it wasn't really a big thing. From 2016 to 2017, transgender individuals were allowed to serve openly. From 2018 to 2019, and again in 2021 to 25, they were allowed to both serve and enlist openly. From 2019, this is very important, from 2019 to 2021, transgender individuals were banned from enlisting in and serving in the U.S. military, except under narrow exceptions. Now, I'm going to tell you that those exceptions, you still gotta meet a lot of MOS and physical fitness standards, and those things don't change. Across the U.S. Armed Forces, transgender enlistment and access to publicly funded gender affirming was paused on February 27, 2025. Now, I'm going to explain to you why that's important. Because you, the taxpayer, were paying for the transitioning. And that is something that actually didn't go over well with me either. And that whole case was brought before the U.S. Supreme Court on May 6th. And basically what happened, the restrictions were paused from March 27th when a nationwide preliminary injunction was issued in the case versus Schilling versus the United States, to May 6th when the U.S. Supreme Court stayed the injunction, allowing the ban to resume effect. As of September 25, the ban is being appealed in the North Circuit, Ninth Circuit. That's the California Circuit. That's the liberal circuit. It doesn't surprise me that somebody brought it here. They're going to fail. They're going to be failing. That will fail. The military is not a democratic or republic type of institution that has to follow societal norms, generally. And I say that very broadly when I talk about race relations and about minorities entering the military. It is one of the first things, the military was one of the first organizations to openly embrace minorities. And if you ever served in the military, you know that minorities play an important part in the United States military. So, progressiveness is not always bad. So that being said, I said that it costs some money to do this. Here's what it costs, and here's the estimates on it. there are, as of 2020, there were an estimated 14,700 to 15,500 transgender individuals in the active guard or the reserve, and in reserve roles with official DoD figures around 8,980. Active duty troops, while the cost for their gender-affirming care was a small fraction of the military health budget, averaging around $9,000 per service member for those needing treatment, covering hormones, therapy, and surgery. Yeah, it is a relatively small amount, and there is no doubt about that. And I'm not going to argue that. That's not why we would even argue that cost. What we would argue is that the American taxpayer should not be on the hook for that kind of a situation. Okay, and basically the military did look back and they realized a lot of this. There was a lot of underreporting due to fear of disclosure and other things. So a lot of people just weren't talking to their command. And this was an NTH-supported study, noting service members are twice as likely to serve if they obviously don't report this. Cost of transition care. The military spent about $52 million in 2025 on care for gender dysphoria, including therapy, hormone, and surgeries. $52 million. That's money that came out of the taxpayer's pocket. Cost per person, once again, around $9,000. That has varied a little bit, that cost. But I can honestly tell you that that was one of the big driving reasons why the Secretary of War, the President, and the Pentagon ended that program, along with removing transgender from the United States armed forces. They are no longer serving, or if they are, they're there has to be a rare exception or a waiver that allows them to serve. But overall, that is sort of like the dead horse that's kind of been the elephant in the room that's been removed. The world as we know it, when it comes to war, hasn't changed since World War II in the trenches or World War I. The technology has changed. It's much more effective. It's much more lethal. It is much more accurate. And because of that, our approach to war has to change. Our necessity to make sure that our soldiers and our service members meet standards doesn't. That is something that should have never changed, but it did multiple times over the years. So I will say to you is this. The battlefield has no place for woke. And it does affect readiness. I'm going to show you a government of office accountability study right here and take a look at that. Now, if you see that, what you'll see there is that there was a readiness drop over a several year period. And for the most part, most military services never met their recruiting goals. And I'm not going to blame that all on woke, because that wouldn't be fair either. There are a lot of incentives in the civilian world for people to go make more money. Just a fact. If you can make more money in the civilian world, probably wouldn't be a bad idea. And you don't get shot at. So that's kind of a win-win. But if you go in the military, there are a lot of programs and a lot of things available, including the VA afterwards, after you've served 180 consecutive days, that make up for that difference in pay. Okay, so the military is a great place to be if you're looking for a place to park and get a career. There are a lot of places in the military, obviously, that, becoming an infantryman is not going to translate well unless you maybe go into police work or private security. It's not going to translate well. You don't get to run around and kill people. Not in the civilian world. It's just not going to happen. But if you, in like my case, I was a former broadcast journalist, as you can see, and a psychological operations operative. Those things translate into the real world pretty well. There are a lot of MOSs, and there are literally dozens of them, if not hundreds. And every military service has a fair amount of them. And you can do whatever you want to do. You can go from a clerk all the way to a Navy SEAL, all the way to a Delta Force operative, right up to and including Green Beret and the Rangers. Or you can just stay simply a infantryman like I did. Those things are always available to you. And I'm not saying that my career in the military was stellar, because there were times that I was one of those soldiers you shook your head at and went, oh my gosh. But somewhere along the line, by the time I got to my E7, I kind of figured out that whatever I was doing, I needed to improve it 150%, and I did. I once took an Article 15 in the military to highlight the bad leadership in a company. And it worked, because eventually that first sergeant was investigated by the upper command, the chain of command, and found to be pretty dirty. So that being said, I personally, how's that basically fit into this? At the time, no, I didn't meet the military standards by following rules. I broke those rules to help other soldiers, because I am a former first sergeant who totally loves the enlisted and will do anything to protect them, as long as they're right and they haven't done anything wrong and they're within their moral rights. And I did that to highlight a rogue command. And it worked. It could have cost me my whole career, but it worked. And all I'm saying to you is this, that standards are there for a reason. Sometimes you have to go beyond them, find reasons to do things that you do, or sometimes you literally just have to fall within them and follow the chain of command and do what you're told to do. And one of those things is being physically fit, being ready for duty, and not bringing politics into the military. Because at no point in the military are you a Republican or a Democrat. We don't care. I don't care. You have no business bringing that into the military. Go to the voting booth. Vote. Do your thing. But don't bring it to work. Because the military is apolitical. Always has been, always will be. There is no place in the military for anything but a service member doing his job and doing it to the best of their ability. Male, female, black, white, green, yellow, purple, makes no difference. As long as the mission is accomplished and people are taken care of, that is what the military is about. And it's a brotherhood. And we help each other out. That's the one thing I miss about the military more than anything, is the brotherhood. And I'm not going to lie to you. Every day that I no longer do this, I kind of go, well, wow, it was pretty good when I had it. I didn't realize sometimes the grind, especially when you're in a war zone, I mean, the grind it's debilitating. I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to see when I do my episode on Abu Ghraib, talking to a soldier, he's going to tell you the same thing that every soldier would tell you that served in theater. It's a grind. It wears you down. When you are done, whatever's left of you, you need to recharge that and go home and just take a couple months off. It's going to drain everything you have. That's why there's no place for woke, DEI, all of these other things. They don't help. You have to be able to do your job, be mentally strong, be physically strong, and at all times ready to perform up to the 100% that you can do. There isn't a whole lot of negotiation on that, and there never has been. So I'm going to wind this up by saying to anybody who's basically watching this, and by the way, if you're one of my followers, I want a special shout out to every one of you. Thank you. I so appreciate you following me. And you are so loved. I love every one of you. Thank you. If you want to follow me, hit that like and follow button, that share button. I am there to put out more episodes. We got a lot more coming, including the mass graves of Iraq and several other episodes. And I'm going to give you my take. Now, you may not always agree with me. And by the way, we have comments, and you can actually send an email to me through my Gmail at themilitaryhistorianpod@gmail.com and let me know whether you agree with what I say or what I don't. I want to hear from my viewers. I absolutely love you guys. I want to let you know that I appreciate everything you do and the time you give me. I realize you're busy, and I can't thank you enough for giving me your time. And it makes me humble. I have to admit, it really does. Thank you. So I'm going to wrap this up with saying this. I am not a person who has an issue with somebody being gay. I vote for gay marriage in California. There are people who disagree with me on that. I vote for a lot of things. I tend to be on the liberal side in a lot of things. That's why I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I stay away from that moniker as far as I can. I'm an independent, have been for years. And I was a libertarian until they decided to put up a communist for election, for the 2024 election, for the 2020 election or whatever. The last election, presidential election, they put up a communist. My patience ran out there. That's why I became an independent. But my thought is this. I put out exactly the way I see it. And this comes from 43 years of military experience on and off. My time is done. I've moved on. I am now doing other things. But I always support the military. I'm always pro-military and always will be. Always will be. And I want you to never mistake that. Never believe anything other than that about me. I may not always agree with some policies or some things that are being put out. I may not always agree with what the Republicans do or the Democrats do. But at all times, I'm always going to give you my straight take on military issues because I'm not a big fan of politics. And with that being said, and that was very long-winded, and I do apologize, thank you for tuning in. Catch me on the next episode of The Military Historian. Can't wait to hear what you've got to say. Put in the comments what you think about this episode and what you would like to have on one of our future episodes. Thank you. God bless you. See you on the flip side. I'm out. All right. So here's the deal. If you actually like and want to share these videos, I think you're supposed to hit the share and a like button. Go ahead, hit it. I think that's what you're supposed to do. And share it with others. We've got more videos coming your way. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time.